They told me retirement was supposed to be the quiet season of a man's life. Just porch swings, fresh cut grass, the creak of a screen door, the kind of peace you only notice when you finally stop chasing it. Well, that's a hell of a sales pitch. If you'd told me that the most action I'd see after 30 years as an Army operations officer would come from fighting a bunch of pastel-wearing clipboard warriors, I'd have laughed you right out of my kitchen. But that's exactly how it went down. Let me back up a sec. The house I bought up on Ridgeview Hills wasn't anything special. Cedar shingles, stone patio out back, perched up high like it was meant for someone who'd never quite stopped keeping watch. The best part was the backyard, honestly. Hill drops off steep runs down into this so-called green belt the HOA claimed was their land. But let's be real, it was just a tangle of weeds and runoff kept folks away. That's how I liked it. I wanted to be left alone, keep my head down, pay my dues, and just maybe figure out what the hell to do with yeast so I could finally learn to bake bread. 2 years of real peace. I minded my own, kept the trash cans out of sight, ignored those little newsletters scolding folks about mailbox colors or flag sizes. Until Karen Jennings moved in 3 doors down, bringing the kind of energy you normally see in a tax audit. Karen, man, if I had a nickel for every time someone warned me about HOA Karens, I could have bought a pizza oven and thrown the world's pettiest block party. First time I met her, she didn't say hi, didn't ask about my garden, didn't even introduce herself. Just pointed at a flower bed I'd let go a bit and said, "This isn't compliant with Ridgeview standards," like she was reading me my last rites. I actually laughed. She didn't. 1 week later, I had a warning letter. 2 days after that, a fine. That was her opening move. After that, she rolled out her so-called beautification initiative. Flower beds on shared land, new dog park, extra path, stuff that sounded nice on paper but meant construction noise trucks and workers marching up and down my fence line like they were laying siege. The board approved everything, of course. Karen had stacked it with people who nodded at anything she said. I kept out of it, figured I'd seen power go to people's heads before, usually in uniform, not in pastels. But then one morning I'm out on my patio, coffee in hand, watching birds fight over a sunflower seed, and I hear this grinding roar. Heavy equipment, not some kid with a mower. I look down my slope and there's a full-size backhoe, bright yellow, clawing up the dirt on what is very much my land. Contractors everywhere, nobody meeting my eye. I ask a young guy with a hard hat, what the hell's going on? He shrugs, says HOA, says it's a drainage trench. My trench. My slope. I've got the deed and the survey to prove it. No answer at the HOA office email, just bounces back with an auto response. So I go down there with my stack of paperwork. Doors locked. Karen's nowhere to be found. That night I call an old friend who's a property lawyer now. She doesn't sugarcoat it, says it smells like more than a misunderstanding. Tells me to document everything. I spend the next morning recording videos, snapping photos, marking out tire tracks that sit a good 10 feet inside my line. But nobody, not me, not Karen, not those poor contractors, knew what was really buried in that hill. That utility pole at the far edge, anchored in rock, sure, but depending on the pressure from the soil to keep it steady. They were hollowing out its foundation with every scoop. Next morning, the rumble starts again, and I'm staring out my window thinking I'm back on deployment waiting for something to blow. I walk down, get in the operator's face, tell him he's trespassing. He just shrugs, swings the boom even closer to that high voltage pole. So I film everything, slow pans, boundary markers, contractor tags. Finally, a guy in a Ridgeview polo shirt comes up, tries to shoo me away, says I'm not allowed on site. I say, "You're not allowed on my property." He flinches, mentions Karen. I say, "Trust me, I'll talk to her." That night's board meeting is a scene straight out of a sitcom, neighbors in folding chairs, lemonade. Karen sitting center stage, like a game show host. I bring the receipts, my survey, my deed photos of the backhoe eating my lot. She tries to argue, says they did their own survey, tries to make it sound official, but you could see the room shifting. Nobody wants to be on the wrong side of a utility pole that's about to fall. Sure enough, the next night after a rain, I notice the base of the pole is drooping. The ground is soft, the concrete footing is starting to peek out like bones through skin. I call the county utilities, but they say they'll get to it next week. Then the power flickers, dies. I step outside. Pole is leaning, wires humming, whole thing ready to fall. Every instinct in me goes on red alert. I warn the neighbors, call 911, and stand watch through the night. By dawn, the pole has shifted another 2 inches. By noon, the county sends out a report, improper excavation, unauthorized earthwork, HOA responsible. I pin a copy of that report to Karen's door myself. Word spreads. Karen rips it down, throws it away, but it's too late. A storm rolls in. Rain eats away at the open trench, and by dusk the pole finally gives. It comes down with a crack and a shower of sparks, just missing the houses below. Whole block loses power. Fire trucks, police, news vans, the works. Karen shows up in her spotless Mercedes, tries to smooth talk the responders, but nobody's listening. The engineers on site are furious. Turns out Karen never notified the utility company, never had a permit, and her surveyor isn't even licensed in this state. That's when the story blows up local news, Facebook groups, neighbors whispering in the street. HOA's golden reputation gone overnight. The board calls an emergency meeting. I bring the real survey, the original blueprint from the 1980s, and twist of the year, a restrictive covenant nobody knew about. Turns out the HOA never even owned that slope. Every project, every dollar spent, every improvement they claimed was based on a lie. Karen tries to fight back, files a lawsuit for defamation, but by then the city is involved, the state is involved, and her own board is jumping ship. She's lost the room. Neighbors stand up, tell their stories. Fines for bird feeders, threats over mailbox colors, retaliation for speaking up. The council suspends the entire board bars. Karen, from any future administrative work, launches a full investigation. That should have been the end. But the real end is quieter. The new board gets elected. Dennis, the firefighter next door, wins by a mile. They rewrite the rules, set term limits, throw out every bogus fine. I'm asked to join a task force to help overhaul HOA law across the whole county. Folks wave when I walk past, ask for help reading their deeds or disputing a citation. For the first time in years, the neighborhood feels lighter, flags on porches, kids playing out front, nobody ducking behind curtains. Karen. She's still there somewhere behind her drawn blinds, but she doesn't walk her dog past my house anymore. The city posts my name in the appendix of the new HOA oversight bill doesn't matter. I wasn't chasing recognition. I was chasing peace. Sometimes justice looks like a courtroom. Sometimes it's just a neighborhood finally breathing easy. The land healed. The people did too. And the funny thing is, I finally learned how to bake bread. Turns out it's all about patience, never forcing it, just trusting the rise. So let me ask you, where do you draw your line? What's worth standing your ground for? Drop a comment, share your own story if you've tangled with an HOA, or hell, just tell me how you like your bread. Because when it comes down to it, it's not about the board or the bylaws or even the land. It's about dignity, and nobody's taking that from me ever again.